Okay, so what is the Kalam argument and why is it important? So first of all, what is the Kalam argument? It's a logical argument. Let's start with what does it say? Yes.
Infinite number of days has no end. Today is the end of day. Today is the end day of history. History being collected of all days. Therefore, there was not an infinite number of days for today.
In my experience, this is the hardest thing for my students to wrap their minds around. Philosophy is hard to wrap your brains around. I'm going to do my best to help you understand it as well as you can. So I would first just write out the 1, 2, 3, that an infinite number of days has no end. But today is the end day of history. History being a collection of days, of all days. Therefore, there were not an infinite number of days. It's what page is it on? 90. Page 90. Just write it.
Sense. I just want to cry.
That's how I felt every day.
Makes sense. I don't think I could explain it to someone else.
And I do every year, and it's never enough. Now let's start with what it is before I try to explain it. So what the Kalam argument is a philosophical line of argument for cosmology. It's for the beginning of the universe. So it's a philosophical argument, the philosophical argument for the beginning of the universe. So we've looked at science, we've looked at math, we've looked at logic, and now the philosophy is saying the same thing. So what the Kalam is doing is it is proof outside of science that supports the science. It's proof outside of science that supports the science. Yes.
Isn't philosophy just theories and like observations?
It is theories and observations. That's what science is as well. But these are not scientific. It's not. It's reasoning.
But how can it?
It's still reasoning. It's just not scientific reasoning. I mean, you believe all kinds of things based on philosophy, right? And so this isn't scientific, but it is logic. It doesn't make it less true. So here's my best description of the Kalam. So an infinite days has no end, right? So if there's an infinite number of days, there would never be an end. There would never be a beginning. There would never be an end. That's like heaven, right? That's like, but in this world, we don't have that. So an infinite number of days has no end. But today is the end day of history. History being a collection of days. In other words, do we have any days after today? In theory we do, right? We're thinking we do. But what the Bible tells us and what the science tells us is that someday there will be days. But have they come? They haven't. It's like saying, I have a second daughter that I don't have. Now I can't anymore, but theoretically, if I were young enough, I could have another one. But I can't say that that child has come. Never did. Yes.
When they say infinite number of days, does that mean that like infinitely, like the day as in like every day for an infinite amount of time that the sun rises, or does that mean that like in just an infinite day, like one singular day?
No. It's a collect. For us, it's a collection of days. Outside of space and time, there is no time. But in space or time.
And when they mean infinite days, they really mean like to wake up, go to bed, wake up.
Yes, that's exactly right. But here's the thing. And for something to be infinite, it has to go on forever in both ways, right? Time wise, it has to go on forever in both ways. Has the number of days for the universe? Have we had all of those days? No, we only have till today. So it isn't infinite. And it won't be because the universe is. Does that make sense? We aren't infinite. We had a beginning. We won't have an end, but we had a beginning, right? So we are, but we're not infinite. We can't be infinite. Even when we're in heaven, we won't be infinite. We will die. So therefore, there cannot be an infinite number of days today because there are no more days yet. But then tomorrow, the same thing will be true, and the next day, and this is supporting the science. The science also says the universe had a beginning and it will have an end. That's what the science tells us. This supports the science because there's not an infinite number of days. If you can understand that much, that's as much as I'm going to expect you to understand. Beyond that, someday we might have a philosopher come in and tell us more. But that's it's a philosophical argument that undergirds the science. Okay, so now we're going to do the engaged questions. And I was going to have you do those and then discuss them, but as long as we're discussing, why don't we just keep going, huh? Okay, so what fatal mistake did the physics professor make regarding the second law of thermodynamics, and how did Dr. Geisler respond to him? So first, let's start with that first question. What mistake did he make concerning the second law? Yes.
He said every law has an exception. This is my exception. Speaking of matter is eternal.
Okay, and what's wrong with that?
He just came up with it. Like this is not fact.
Law has an exception if it's not true. It can't have an exception.
Laws of nature, laws of science are always true. And it isn't true that every law has an exception in terms of science.
You said we didn't have to write it down if you were talking about it.
What?
We have to write it down.
Oh, I know. I want you to write it down. I do want you to write it down. But obviously, he can't prove that there's an exception. He believes it, but he can't prove it. And he's a scientist. He believes something he can't prove. That's a moron. Now, he says in the book that he could have used the roadrunner tactic, right? But what did he, what could he have done with the roadrunner tactic? So, how could he have used the roadrunner tactic to do that? Or maybe he did use it.
I think he did. If everything is material, then what is a scientific theory?
Theory is magic.
Right, that's what he said.
And then he says, your statement as a law itself, if every law has an exception, this, like, wouldn't your statement of the law has an exception also have an exception?
What's the exception?
This law.
Yeah, very good. So instead he got the scientists to admit that he had faith in magic, which is a ridiculous thing for any scientist to say. In fact, magic isn't real, right? Magic is just sleight of hand. It's not really magic. What?
Something else.
Yeah. But the magician is known to be a magician. So what fatal mistake did my wording might be just slightly different than yours on this one. What fatal mistake did Dr. Peter Atkins make regarding the beginning of the universe? How did Dr. Craig correct him?
Atkins imagined a swirling dust of mathematical points
Yes.
that would be combined to create.
Yes. So Peter Atkins created something. Random mathematical points that have never been seen, never been tested, never been even assumed or any proof at all. And so then, what did Dr. Craig say? Yes.
Great too was that it wasn't a scientific theory and that it was like a self-contradictory metaphysics.
Yeah. So pop metaphysics is like popular. Pop is for popular, right? So pop music is popular music, and metaphysics is combined pseudoscience.
Is that the guy that said that there was imaginary time?
I don't know if it was the same guy.
Wasn't Hawking the one that said imaginary time? Got hard on it.
And I don't know if this is exactly right, but I would say that I would think that swirling mathematical points are.
I would agree.
I've never seen them. But I'm not even sure what they are. Jared, do you know what swirling mathematical points are? Are they a thing?
Nothing mathematical. I did.
Okay, you heard it from the professor. You made that up. Not you made that up.
What's his
Atkins made it up. How would you respond to someone who asks you, who made God? Yes.
No one made God because God is outside the natural law.
God has always been. God didn't need a creator because he is eternal. And he is the only thing that is, right? The triune God, which we'll talk about later. We got to prove that there is God first. But he has no beginning, He has no end. He never came to be. He doesn't need a cause because he exists outside of space. The way I like to put it is, in fact, either the universe or something outside of the universe must be eternal in order for the universe to exist. I'll say that again. The universe or something outside of the universe must be eternal for the universe to exist, because if the universe exploded out of nothing, that's spice, but also space and time at that point. And all the evidence points to the universe having a beginning. And so if the universe had a beginning, it had a cause. It has something that began it. There's something that began it. Okay, so you have the rest of the hour to study for your test. And tomorrow I'm going to talk about the theological background of the law of entropy. We're going to combine Bible and science. We'll play the Keiser quiz on Thursday. And then the Old Testament song and your chapter 2 are due on